Hi, I'm Ed Weaver at Weaver's Orchard, one of the owners here, and it's a beautiful snowy February day here in 2015, and we want to show you how we prune apple trees. And we are in a 4-year-old block here of a new variety called Crimson Crisp, which is an excellent crisp, somewhat tart tasting apple. And so we're going to go over a few basic principles of pruning an apple tree. Like I said, these are 4-year-old apple trees, and they are on a semi-dwarf rootstock, and much like you would grow in a home garden, versus some of our trees that are in the background that are in trellis that are on a dwarf rootstock. So a few good principles to remember when you prune an apple tree. And the reason we prune is to get better fruit quality. And so you don't want your tree to get too thick with limbs so that you get a good amount of light into the tree. And as you look at this tree, this is what we would call a central leader system, where we have one main leader or trunk coming up through the middle, and then coming off of that we have branches. And we try to encourage them to grow in a horizontal spreading diagram. And the reason for that is so that you get better light distribution into the trees, because it's light that initiates fruit buds. So one of the first things I'm going to do, now that this tree is 4 years old, I already see some limbs coming out that are getting fairly large, and we like to start a renewal process, what we call a renewal, so that the tree is always growing some new branches. So I'm going to select 2 or 3 of the heavier limbs coming out, and a couple that are a little bit more crowding some of the others. So here I see one that's coming out, and it's crowding another young shoot that's coming below it. So I'm going to remove that completely. So that's one. And if I look at the other side of the tree, I see one coming up here that's pretty heavy, that's also growing a little more in an upright pattern, which I don't like. I'm going to remove that one. And that opens up that part of the tree very nicely. And I think I may do one more right here. And I always try to make a little bit of a beveled cut, which encourages the new growth that comes out to sprout out from the bottom. One of the next things I'll do is I look at the tree and I remove branches that are growing straight up or straight down. So we're going to remove some of these more upright shoots. We also watch for limbs that are growing back toward the middle of the tree instead of growing out. So now I'm removing all these upright shoots so that we keep this tree growing that the limbs are in a more horizontal position. Now you will notice that I'm not going to be doing much at all to the very top of the tree. We want to keep that growing in an upright position and keep that main central leader. Here's one that's growing back toward the middle, so we take that off. Eventually we will need to do something with the top of the tree in a year or two, but the idea is to not touch that too much, let it set up fruit buds and crop, and eventually the top then will bend over. And we call that a crop and flop. Isn't that an interesting term? So that's pretty much the basics of how we prune a 4-year-old apple tree. It's still looking a little bit thick in a couple places, but we'll let that crop this year, and then there'll be more things to remove in the following year. And we try to go over each of our trees each year and do a light amount of pruning. It's better to prune annually than skip a year and do excessive pruning every couple years. That helps to keep the tree in balance. So thanks for coming out to Weaver's Orchard with us today, and we hope this has been helpful.